Hello everyone, welcome to OP Tutorials. This is OP Shah. I'm going to talk about silence today. How ironical, isn't it? In order to talk about silence, I must use words. And so is the silence. There are many more things that a silence speaks volume than the words. The poem that I have chosen today is Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda is one of the Nobel Prize winning poets, originally named as Neftali Ricardo Ruiz da Salto. A bit tough, right? Yeah. So he had adopted this name Pablo Neruda in memory of the Czechoslovakian poet Jan Neruda. So this poem is all about the silent introspection. It is very rightly said that in this rapid 21st century world, we hardly get time for ourselves. We hardly get time to think about our doings. And in that condition, even the wrong, we find it right. In that condition, we hardly know the way we are walking upon. And thus, there lies chance that we may commit error. So, in this poem, using very simple language, he tries to make us understand the importance of silence. Thus, in a single line, we can say that the poem talks about introspection, self-assessment or self-judgment. So let us go through the text word by word, and I will make you understand even the figures of speech used in the text. So the poem is divided into 7 stanzas. Some are of 2 lines, some of 3, and some goes more than that. Let us have a look in the text first. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. Now we will count to 12. So the poet wants to say that a human mind at a single time can divert, can glide, can go to many different places. And thus counting to 12 is a signal that you have got a few seconds left. You need to get yourself back completely so that we can have a better introspection. So now we will count to 12 and we all will keep still. We all will maintain silence. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. For once on the face of this earth, on this surface of this earth, let us not speak in any language. Let us not move our arms. The poet wants to say that once, try it at least for once, doing nothing. Doing nothing means you need not move much, you need not speak any language, just think about yourself, because this will be the rare activity. We hardly perform this. We hardly do this. The language is very simple. For once on the face of the earth, let us not speak in any language. We would not speak in any language. Let us stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It wants in the second stanza that we must not speak in any language, neither we should move. We will keep our arms still. It would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. It would be an exotic moment. Exotic suggests what? Exotic. So exotic means something unusual, so attractive. So it will be a strange moment for us. See, this is quite natural within us. The qualities we possess inbuilt is something strange to us. Realizing that is something strange, something different to us. Without rush. Rush too means the same. Without any movement, without engines. So engine exactly again suggests the activity. So the poet wants to maintain silence, to maintain complete quietude. So without rush, without engines, without movements, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. So we will feel the unity. We will feel ourselves together, and this is one of the motives that the poet wants to convey us. Because in the chapter, you can see there is a symbol made just above the name of the title, just above the caption. So you can have a look here. The very symbol suggests national integration. national integrity. So this is what the poet wants. We all are together in many different ways, but we keep on searching the point of separation. We hardly think about the point of unification. So the poet says we all be together. So if you could maintain this silence for a while, you will feel something strange from within, and you will feel togetherness. And when we consider others as our own, there is hardly any chance to harm them. This is the universal truth. So we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hand. See here, alliteration is used. The sound her is being repeated. His hurt hand. You can rightly point out alliteration. So fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. So whales here is the symbol of natural creature that is being exploited by the human beings. Fisherman is the representative of the human beings who keeps on exploiting the nature, who keeps on disturbing the natural creature, and in this way ultimately we are harming ourselves, isn't it? And the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hand. So the exploitation that we have made to nature, ultimately we are the sufferer. We are the sufferer. So the man who had already suffered for such a long time would look. They must see their hurt hand once. Look at the hurt hand. Because if the hand would be hurt while gathering salt, ultimately it will trouble us. It will definitely be very much painful. So the man, talking about the humans, we must look at our hurt hand, because exploiting the nature, disturbing or killing the natural creature ultimately disturbs the ecosystem. So our hand is already hurt. We must look at our hurt hand before we gather salt, because ultimately we are going to feel the pain. Those who prepare green war with gas, war with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So those who prepare green wars. So green, what is a symbol here? War against greenery, exploiting the nature, cutting down the trees. So the person who are preparing, if you will be busy enough to prepare for a war, it is certain that you are going to have no time for yourself, neither for your family members, your relatives. Those who prepare green wars, war with gas, war with fire, victory with no survivors. This is the fact. War with gas suggests we are involved in so much scientific inventions, in so much technological development, that we hardly think about the pollutions, about the smokes, the poisonous smokes that is emitted in the environment. So those who are doing this, war with gas, war with fire, those who are busy in inventing, in making the explosives that will ultimately result in fire, those who are doing this, they may win the battle against nature, but who to celebrate with? There will be no survivors. They may get the victory, they may win the battle, but with no survivors. Would put on clean clothes. See the sense here, the break of the sentence. Would put on means those who prepare such things, if they would leave it, then they will get the time, then they will get the opportunity to put on clean clothes. Cloth of goodness. Would put on clean clothes, will have the goodness and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So in the shade again suggests a place of beauty. So shady place, we generally like it. So if we will not be busy in doing all these nonsense stuff, then we will have time for our brothers, for our relatives, for ourselves. We can put on clean clothes, the cloth of goodness, and we can walk in the shade doing nothing. We can have time for our own persons, we can have time for our relatives doing nothing. So ultimately, if we are so busy in doing the wrong thing, definitely we will have no time for the right, isn't it? So this is what the poet want to convey so far. So let us have, there is the continuation of the text. Let us justify the figures of speech in the lines used here. We can see, in spite of the imageries, in spite of the symbols used, there are number of alliterations. One we have pointed out there. See here, the complete word has been repeated. We call it repetition. So where we find the complete word getting repeated in a sentence, we will rightly call it repetition. Now we will, here again we can see the w sound is getting repeated, so we can rightly call it alliteration. We can see the s sound is getting repeated here, sudden strangeness, again alliteration. These are the figures of speech used. Repetition is used, alliteration is used, and number of symbols or imageries is used. So let us see what is left on the other side. The poet further says that what I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So this is a single stanza. The poet wants to say that he does not want anyone to be confused with total inactivity. What he just wants is to maintain silence for a while, so that in the long run we can have time for ourselves to decide the way we are walking upon, to decide the sources we are using, whether it is right or not. So the poet doesn't mean to say total inactive, because total inactive means death. When we will die, we will have no movement, we will be completely inactive. But the poet simply wants a short break in the long run, so that we can judge ourselves. And it should not be confused with total inactivity. Further, he clears life is what it is about. Life means movement. If we are alive, we must move, we must be busy in our work. So life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. So the phrase actually means no truck, I have no relation to, means refuse to agree with. So the poet did not agree with the statement with death. The poet says, I want no truck with death. I do not actually mean in any way death. If we were not so single-minded. So single-minded suggests what here? Single mentality, that when we are moving, we will keep on moving without break, without stop. So the matter will be such that we are so busy in driving that we have no time to refill the tank. So in that condition, we are creating a disaster to ourselves. So if we were not so single-minded means if we will keep silence, it's not that we must always maintain silence. And if we will be busy with our work, again it is not the same, that we must carry on our work continuously 24/7. So if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, so we must not be single-minded. If we are not such, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence. If we could follow this suggestion, if we could follow this advice, for once doing nothing, perhaps a huge silence, it might interrupt. So it may bar, it may interfere or interrupt what? Sadness, the reason of sadness. And this sadness is created, has come of never understanding ourselves. So many a time we become sad because we cannot understand ourselves nor the reason of the sadness, and simply we remain sad, we remain sorrowful. So if we can have silence, if we can introspect or assess ourselves, judge ourselves, we will get the solution. If we will come across the problem, the source of it, definitely we will have some solutions for it. So perhaps a huge silence will interrupt the sadness, and the sadness which is caused by never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So we challenge the death against ourselves. Ultimately, no human can win over death. So by doing such things, by not maintaining silence, by not thinking about ourselves, we threaten death against us. So ultimately, we are going to ruin ourselves. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. So the earth is personified here. Earth is playing the role of a teacher. It can teach us what? That when everything seems dead, when we have no hope left, or if our past is so wrong that is letting us in depression, that is dragging us in depression again, if we will maintain silence, if we can have the quietude and deciding upon it, thinking upon it, we will definitely get a solution. Because earth too is considered non-living, non-human. It seems dead, but when a seed goes within, after a few days later on, we can see it sprouts to life. So is our life. It is never too late to begin. Now I will count to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. So the poet further says that after taking lessons from the natural creatures, from the natural elements, we can make our life better. Because it can be wrong to commit wrong, but it is never wrong to correct ourselves after committing the wrong. Got it? The poet has instructed to the group of persons, to the readers here, and behaving as if the poet has a different place to visit. So he says that you will maintain silence, you will keep on introspecting yourselves, and I will go. I will leave to some other place so that I can suggest the same to others too. So the entire poem is in a way imperative, something advising, suggestive. And thus in this part, let us see whether we have any figures of speech used or not. In most of the poems, one common figures of speech you may come across, caesura. So that is actually the continuation of a line even in the other lines of the text. And the first word generally in a poem begins with a capital, even if that remain the continuation of the previous line or the lines above. So caesura is used here too. We can have a look in one more statement which is repeated. In the very first line we saw something same. Now in the first line it was now we will count to 12. Here it is now I will count to 12. So there is a slight difference. Had it not been such, I would have better call it refrain. So refrain too is actually the technical device where the complete line gets repeated at a regular interval or number of times in a poem. So here I am not going to point that out, because in the first one the pronoun was different, and here it is I used, there it was we used. Hope you have got the matter well. This is all about the text, and in case of any doubt you can directly write me up in the comment box below. And thank you for your love and attention so far. Keep supporting, and I'm going to bring you many more academic, non-academic and inspirational videos. So stay tuned. Thank you.